If more of you supported the show, I'd be less sick of podcasts.
The blah-blah-blah.
Sending out good vibes.
Blah-blah-blah.
Good vibes. Good vibes.
Blah-blah-blah.
Good vibes. Good vibes.
108 breaths of deep gratitude and prayers for guidance and protection. And put on a didgeridoo and shamanic drumming track. Shivers or vibrations and stuff like that. 108 breaths of deep gratitude and prayers for guidance and protection. And put on a didgeridoo and shamanic drumming track. Shivers or vibrations and stuff like that.
Grimerica.
Basically, everything else has fallen apart, and Magick has not. It's the tradition has stood steady, and I've tried to revitalize the tradition.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Grimerica show. We're going to be chatting with Jason Louv a little bit later. The first time, of course, he had to just hang around for 40 minutes while we tried to troubleshoot a problem that turned out to be a blown audio hub, which we discovered about 10 minutes after he finally gave up on us. But he was nice enough to come back. So we're going to chat with him a little bit later, and it turned out to be a great chat. So, yeah, it was a fun one. But first, we got Graham. I'm sick of rushing the intros, Dunlop. How's it going, buddy?
I'm okay. Yeah, doing okay. Yeah, Jason was a really good sport about.
He was a super good sport
about the first time. Like, it's just honestly, there's weird things that happen. Like, it was a hub that was broken, and it takes you a while to just figure out what is going wrong, right? I mean, even when you do tests and stuff, then you stop. You start recording, and then things go wrong, and you don't know what's going on. So.
And we still have a gremlin in here right now that I can't figure out.
Yeah, and there's been a ton of episodes out. Jason Louv's been on a lot of podcasts, but this is a little bit different. We do try and do things a little bit different, and I think we had a pretty unique conversation with him. Get into all kinds of stuff besides his book about the Empire. What's it called again? Jeez, that's terrible, eh? I don't even have it in front of me.
The book's here. The books were...
Yeah.
Oh, no, the book's in the house.
Yeah, good job.
Well, that means it's a good book.
Yeah, exactly. It's about John Dee and the Empire of Angels, I think it's called, or something.
Wow.
It's like the British Empire. It's basically awesome story about Enochian magic and guy in the British Empire. And
I was talking about Enochian magic today.
Yeah? It's not a synchronicity.
I know. Is that the one where you get... Wait, is that the one where you get powers? Or you get to be famous or whatever? You sell your soul? Is that Enochian magic? Oh, I'm thinking of the other one. The deal one. Anyway, continue.
The deal one?
These fucking headphones are
like doing the
nuts.
deal, like dealing with the devil kind
of
thing?
Your headphones doing that too?
Yeah.
The one where you sell your soul.
Yeah. Well, that's dark. What is that? Black magic? Dark magic?
Black magic woman.
Maybe. Sex magic?
Anyway, I thought it was Enochian, but it's not.
No, I don't
don't
think
worry
so.
about it.
No. Anyways, yeah, you can tell we're really into magic and stuff, so... He gets into the definition, and we talk about all kinds of stuff. It's pretty cool. I like how he connects it with the current state of affairs in the deep state.
Yeah, that's
like
fun. That's
pretty
awesome.
Awesome.
That's a nice twist. Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah,
a popular role-playing game is called Dungeons End. That's an easy one. Yeah, that's the first question.
No, it wasn't.
Guaranteed.
No,
shit. So anyway, I'm sorry, guys.
Wow.
Graham's razzed because I'm playing HQ trivia during the intro here.
Fucking be a shill for HQ trivia. Don't talk about it on the show.
I'm not, but if you do sign up,
oh my god,
use the code Grimerica
no,
so that I get an extra life.
Really?
That's the only reason I sent it to you.
So what happens when you get an extra life? You stay on.
That means
playing
I could get a question wrong.
Really?
And I could
That's
try
not
again.
Fair. And then you split the winnings because you have the most people signed up.
If you win it, you win.
Do you get a maximum free? Yeah, you get a maximum of one free life, or can you just sign up 100 people?
I don't know. I've never got anyone else to sign up yet.
Okay, well, while you're pitching that, I'm going to pitch a little shout out to my buddy Jason. He's in my CSETI group, and he's going to a gamma wave healing workshop. I wanted to talk about quickly. On June 20, it's in Calgary on June 22nd, 23rd weekend.
When are we going sweat lodging?
I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes. And it's a guy coming up from New Mexico, I think. He's going to be doing Gamma Wave Healing Level 1. And it's like he's facilitated energetic healings and readings for several hundred people since 2000. And he had a close encounter with a UFO. This is interesting. These experiences have led him to develop a unique energetic healing modality called gamma wave healing, named after the modality's ability to assist you in entering a gamma brainwave state.
I thought isn't a gamma ray? Oh no, isn't a gamma ray what comes out of a fucking supernova?
Probably.
And that would like vaporize the entire planet.
It's just a frequency, I think, right? So gamma, theta, So anyways, I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, June 22nd and June 24th. And I'm not even sure where it is, actually. But I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Oh, it's at the Hidden Gem Studio. So
where's that?
I think that's in Mid Park Way. That sounds like that little sort of mini industrial. No, probably that industrial park.
Not down in Miniport? No one else knows.
It's one of the cool industrial parks. Like,
are you going to go?
No, I have a hockey tournament that weekend.
A ball hockey tournament?
Yeah. Anyways, let's move on.
I'm out.
I got lots to say. I knew it wouldn't take you long.
Story of my life.
How many did you get right? The first one?
I don't know. I missed it. I was late. You only get 10 seconds.
And you missed it.
Because you made me podcast. That's okay. There's another one tomorrow.
Jesus. So anyways, I got a UFO quote. I got some listener synchros and some feedback. What do you want to get into?
I want a good score from a synchronicity. If Graham reads it out, then Darren might give it to me. Hey, don't you please rate it low. Yeah.
So first of all, we love getting emails from listeners about all kinds of stuff like sightings. I've got a couple of UFO sightings in here to read as well. Synchronicities, trip reports. I'm building up a little bit of a backlog of them, but we try and read them out when we can. Yep, and it's always good to hear from people and to hear where you guys heard the show.
Got to quit rushing the intros.
And you can say it at Graham at Grimerica. You can send it to Graham at Grimerica.com.
Yeah, you can tweet us.
Yeah, Darren's on. Well, he's kind of on the Twitters. He's weaning himself off the Twitters.
Yeah, I don't spend a lot of time on the Twitters anymore. I'll check it at least once a day, though.
Yeah, and I'm on the Instagram. Same thing. I'm not really on lots, but we don't.
You come to the chats.
Following, but there's the chats. Yeah, that's
come to the chats.
That's the place to be. Really,
that's the place to be.
Yeah,
Discord is the new thing.
I had James Cruz in there today, shilling for cruising with steak.
Motherfucker.
Starts out with a big gratitude to us, and he's like, by the way, check out Cruising with Steak, the other channel.
You just gave another plug.
Yeah.
Check out Cruising with Steak. They're good guys.
Yeah. I'll put a link to that in the show notes too. They met they fell in love in the chats.
Yeah.
James and Grim.
Strangers in the night. And Grim.
Hey, there's a few podcasts started out from. There's another couple starting out too.
Yeah. Unky Guam.
Yeah.
A little podcast posse.
Yeah. All right.
So I
got
synchro, man.
Yeah, sorry, I got just making notes here. So hey there, Darren and Graham. Hail Grimerica. Oh, I'm a long time. It says hail. So
how's it spelled?
HAIL.
Oh, spelled wrong.
I'm a long time listener. First time caller.
Long time, first time. First time, long time.
And have been hesitant/reluctant to submit this to you guys as a synchro, since to me it's more of a never-ending cosmic mindfuck to me rather than a true synchronicity. The liquid blanket is warming my soul. And then he says /soul, like spelt the other way. And I figure now is as good a time as any to share this with you. The synchro, in my mind, isn't really like a typical deja vu type event. Rather, it is an interesting entanglement of overlapping dates and weird combinations of names and dates. I apologize if this takes me a moment to type it out. It's kind of hard to put it all into chronological order of events, so I will just try and lay out all the facts and coincidences and let you guys see if it falls under the category of synchro or just mindfuckery. There are 5 people and 3 dogs involved in this twisted tale. I was born on May 13th, 1968. My wife was born on January 26th. I've only been with 2 women in my life.
Uh-oh.
It's all falling apart already. my ex-girlfriend and my wife. My ex-girlfriend and my wife happen to share the same birthday, January 26th. I have 4 kids, 3 boys and a daughter. Our daughter is the youngest child, and she happens to share the same birthday as my wife and my ex, January 26th. My daughter has a boyfriend, and guess what his birthday is? May 13th. Okay, well, not really a synchro. There are a couple other interesting events tied into all this. My daughter's boyfriend was born in Keno, Oregon. We used to have a red healer a few years ago who happened to be named Keno. And the last strange coincidence is that my daughter has a dog, a Chiweenie, named Izzy, and her boyfriend also happens to have a dog named Izzy. While not totally mind-boggling, I do think it's kind of weird. One other astrological coincidence happens to be that my daughter's boyfriend's younger brother and his father also share the same birthday of December 23rd. Sort of bizarre that both our families share a parent and a sibling with the same birthday. Anyways, just figured I'd send this to you guys and maybe you'd get a kick out of the way the universe deals its hand to us and sometimes seems to give us a kind of glimpse of the man behind the curtain pulling all those fancy levers and laughing at us. Keep up the great work and thanks for your time, Steve in Boise, Idaho, where it's always 8 o'clock.
Oh, it's always 8 o'clock.
That's a Skinner reference.
How come it has to be a man?
What?
Maybe it's a they. Then 13 is half of 26.
Oh. Wow, that's a good one. See, leave it to Darren to find a little bit of an extra little link there.
Yeah.
So
Maybe.
I'd say, would you say that's a sync or just a little mind fuckery probably?
Let's call it mindfuckery so I don't have to crush him with a shitty score.
I got another one for you here.
Oh, is this a gram one?
No, it's a synchronicity or spirit contact. It's a question whether it's dead grandfather synchronicity or spirit contact.
No, this isn't fair.
What?
I don't want to be. I'm not a ghostbuster.
You don't have to rate it. You don't have to rate it.
Okay, well, I'm not deciding what it is either.
It's about. You have a thing about synchronicities.
I get to decide. I get to decide whether or not it's their dead relative contacting them or not.
You don't have to decide anything. Just listen.
I'm not answering the question then.
All right.
I'm not above telling someone they're crazy.
Hi, Graham. I'm just listening to your podcast this week. I just started listening to your podcast this week and just became a supporter of the show. I think your interest in synchronicities, I think I share your interest in synchronicities, although I'm not quite sure what to think of them. I have a bunch of strange stories I can tell you about, but I thought I would just share this one for now. If you decide to use this... Uh-oh, did I say his name?
I don't know.
If you decide to use this story on the show, I would just ask that you don't use my real name.
Well, we've stated no, we can't edit anything. We stated multiple times that needs to be the first thing. Really has to be right at the top.
Did I say it? I don't think I said it yet, did I?
I don't know, but I'm
so
not
if
checking.
I come to the end, then just tell me to hush.
Okay. No, I'm not
forget.
telling you again. Write it fucking down.
About 2 years ago, I had a very vivid dream that my grandfather, who passed away when I was in 2nd grade, came to visit me. I'm just writing no name on the table here. In the dream, he was wearing a green shirt with a yellow writing on it, which I have since confirmed was the uniform of the landscaping business he owned when he was alive. So he just confirmed that.
Well, you probably seen him when he was a kid.
No, he said he just confirmed it. Okay, maybe. So in the dream, my grandfather told me that I needed to be prepared because in the near future there was going to be an event that would tear my family apart. He then said that I would be the only person who could bring everyone back together. Wow, that's pretty heavy.
Maybe it's his knowledge of podcasts.
The dream felt so real that I told my brother and wife about it the next day after I woke up. Fast forward 1 month to the day later, and I get a phone call telling me that my dad is being life flighted in a helicopter to the hospital because he suffered a massive heart attack. After having a quadruple bypass surgery, he ends up being fine. However, while my dad was in the hospital, many of his secrets were exposed, including the fact that he had been cheating on my mom and pissing away money that he was borrowing from relatives, among many other things. Oof.
Jesus.
Whew, heavy stuff. His behaviors and the problems had created that tore my family apart, just like my grandfather warned me it would. Family and friends stopped being family and friends. Today, I've mended relationships with extended family and basically the go-between for everyone who wants to talk to my dad. I've basically been the one who has opened lines of communication between family members, but problems are still being dealt with today. Again, all this happened after my dead grandfather warned me about it in a dream. To this day, my brother and wife still bring up the fact that I told them about this dream, and they can't believe everything we've dealt with since. Not sure if this counts as a synchronicity or not. I don't understand what this dream actually was besides an omen, but it has defined a good 2 years of my life. Anyway, I love the show. I listen to podcasts at work all the time, and I will definitely be catching up on some this week. Actually, that's a fun thing to hear about too, is how people listen to the show, like at work or driving or doing dishes or mowing the lawn or
having sex.
making love.
Interesting to know when they're
Hopefully there's none of those. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to.
No, you don't have to read it. That's a good story. We've had lots of dream stories like that. Like
Ripple before the stick.
there's a lot of pre-code.
Ripple before the stick. Now, Ripple before the stick.
I believe
we
you
need a
can. I
precog
believe
jingle.
that dead people can visit you in your dreams and give you stuff,
Sure.
tell you things.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's like there's a
100%.
There's a precog thing there. I mean, it
I'm
happens.
with you.
A lot of listeners have emailed in about that, and a lot of people I know
Not
personally.
my place to say.
My sister had it happen twice. Big,
Exactly.
very, very profound. For
I wouldn't
her.
tell her she's wrong.
That's right.
How can I? Yeah, exactly.
Do you want me to get? I got another email.
So what's it about?
Well, it's kind of about the Squatty potty situation, but
Is it calling us shills again?
no. Do you want me to?
We really need a squatty potty at work.
But there's a rainbow synchro that I haven't read from this guy,
I should get Donna.
and it's quite a long one, so I'll probably wait with that unless we have time.
Trying to go into this then. Didn't you say you're gonna wait?
Well, no, I have the other part.
Okay. Go.
Hey there, fellas. Nick and Nam here, a satellite station
Like
of the
Vietnam?
UK posse. Yeah.
In Vietnam?
Yeah, he travels. He sends. I get emails from people traveling around the world. Sometimes it's pretty cool. I wrote to you a while back with a few accumulating synchronicities involving my mum and rainbows. Back then, I promised to send you some Vietnamese dong and a full report of the Vietnam squatty potty situation. Well, I don't really know why it's gone quiet on the squatty potty front of late. I, for one, missed the segment, and I may go as far as to encourage the revival of this, with maybe some regular, if you pardon the pun, listener feedback about various flow states.
What segment?
I wonder, the Squatty Potty segment, we used to talk about it. Look, if
Was
you
it a
join the
segment?
chats, you'd see fucking Squatty Potty pics, like people with their legs in the Squatty Potty. Like, I don't know why that's a thing, but people like
I
to
started
prove
that.
people like to prove that they're on
Those
the
are mostly
Squatty
me.
Potty. My toilet is too high for it to be effective. I need to buy the 9-inch, and I don't know where to get it from.
Order it online. I think Amazon has both.
So
Then you could bring your
I just
7-inch to
saved
work.
I just saved mine up for Darren's when I come here.
We
on
need mine
podcast
at
night.
work. We need one at work. I notice.
Really? You know,
Oh, yeah.
Don't work then.
I can't poo.
You're not supposed to hold it. You're not supposed to hold it. You have a squatty potty, Brody?
Hell yeah, I've had
Wow.
one for years.
Wow, what? Really?
See that?
Wow, that's
Yeah, I
another
spent
little
years
synchro.
in
synchronicity.
China.
I probably.
Oh, yeah, you
okay,
squat
okay.
over there.
Yeah, like I noticed the difference.
Yeah, no
Okay, so
kidding.
so this guy's close to China, right? Vietnam? Close
What
by?
in the fuck?
Are they close? Yeah, they're pretty close, right?
Just be,
Sort of. Yes.
Jesus
So-
Christ, Graham. Here we go.
Here you go.
First he's calling people fucking abos. And now this.
Whoa.
So,
Yeah.
so he says, I wonder what happened.
we actually got some emails saying that, no, that's not okay. You need to stop.
I apologized.
You did, yeah. You're going to end up
And
apologizing
I said,
for
thanks
this.
for the warning. So he says, I wonder what happened. Maybe the Squatty Potty subsidiary sponsors pulled out. Wink, wink.
Subsidiary.
Anyway, when taking a shit in this corner of the world, the most prevalent form one takes is the swat.
What's a SWAT?
You're normally given the option of a porcelain bowl sunk into the ground with 2 porcelain foot plates, occasionally with hand grips on either side for the ultimate performance. It sometimes comes with a flush, but usually a colorful bucket of water. Unfortunately, my place houses the regular sit-down lavvy. Therefore, I have laid a brick down to use as the footstool. The height feels nice. You have to have the nice what? Oh, the height feels nice, and you have the luxury of selecting different heights as you can rotate the brick a few ways.
Nice.
See, that's what I need. I need a Squatty Potty that's
A spotty?
Squatty Potty that's rotatable.
That's actually a great idea.
You could decorate it up with some gift wrap and cling film if you like.
I like it.
Interesting, when the dudes here are presented with a regular porcelain throne that we are accustomed to in the West, many still like to pop a swat on the bowl by placing their feet on the seat.
Really?
Yeah. You can often see the footprints. I believe the motives for this are a combination of performance and hygiene. This is why when I see footprints on the toilet seat at work, I always think it's somebody doing up their boot.
What are you
And I'm
kidding
like,
me?
why is this person
There's
putting their
footprints on the
footprint
toilet?
on the toilet seat
There's
to
footprints
do
on
up
the
their
toilet.
boot? Can't they just bend down and do up their
Is
boot
there
on the
footprints
floor?
on the toilet at work?
I've seen footprints on the toilet. I'm
Which
pretty
bathroom
sure.
are you using?
Never mind. I'm not going on
Upstairs?
the seat. On
Up
the
or
toilet
down? Just
seat.
say up or down.
No, I don't know. Well, down obviously, but anyways,
Oh, I only
it doesn't
go
matter.
up.
I don't think they were pointing towards me though.
You should better see which
They
way
must
they're
have been pointing
the other way.
towards the back
Well, you better check which. That's important.
because
now
that
you
could be
need to know.
happening. I mean, that could people
Oh, yeah,
could be
that
swatting at
definitely
work.
be happening at our place.
And maybe some people are just scared of the hygiene thing, like, because when you sit down on a toilet, like that's what bugs me about the toilets in the Western civilization here, like in the Western. Why they're not very clean,
No,
and they're
we
not
were
even
down-
easy to clean. Like
Yeah, I was gonna
it
say
should
that.
be like you fucking sit on it and you can fucking spray it down or flush it or like
This
something
is-
should be a little bit more.
I like the squat
know?
idea, especially with the handles.
But that could be why people are doing it. You just grab a handle from the roof and
Not from the
squat
roof.
on it. And,
We were at Fish Creek the other day in Madison. She's a perfect bush kid. She's like, I gotta pee. So she like pulls her pants on, her shorts down. She grabs like the root coming out of the riverbank and just like leans back,
Wow.
like hanging out. And she starts peeing and the fucking root breaks. And she just falls, fucking topples into Fish Creek.
nice.
Fuck, we all had a pretty good laugh.
Oh, yeah, that's
that was
pretty funny.
fucking hilarious. Yeah.
Did she take it like
Oh
a
yeah,
champ?
she was just fucking laughing.
How old's your daughter, just for the audience?
She'll be 7 in a couple
that's
months.
pretty
Yeah.
funny. Yeah. All right, so where am I here?
Like 23, you might not be.
Yeah. Yeah, she wasn't drunk.
Oh, so
She's
here he
just a kid.
says. So he says you can often see the footprints. I believe the motives for this are a combination of performance and hygiene.
That's right. Well, definitely performance.
Next on to the cleaning stage. Meet the bum gum. The bun gum. Oh, the bum gun. It's hard for me to say that.
Bum gun?
Toilet paper has been given the elbow, and the handheld bidet steps up to the mark and never lets you down. I hope this is enlightening and inspiring. Another huge thank you for your time, dedication, effort,
What's
and
a bum gun? Is there a picture?
It's a bidet.
A handheld bidet.
A handheld
Oh, it's a
bidet?
handheld bidet? Oh, it's a handheld bidet, yeah.
That's probably just a fucking
Wow.
garden hose coming out of the ground. Shh. You can get a little add-on handheld.
I feel like
bidet
that
for you.
wouldn't really do the trick if you're not like wiping hard, you know?
That's your conditioning.
Yeah, that's probably
No,
my
it's-
conditioning, right?
No, it's just like a shower head that hooks up to your sink.
Fuck yeah, we should get. No, you know what you do? It gets a splitter that goes down by
To the
the
toilet,
toilet
yeah,
thing
yeah.
there.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
Right?
And then you just, so doesn't it
I
get
should get-
water everywhere and stuff? Or you just got to
I
do
don't know,
like, I don't know.
It's $55, man. I might get one.
You're sitting in the toilet, you spray.
Try the bum gun on instead of the paper?
Yeah,
Is it
man.
more environmentally friendly or are you using
It's
up more
gotta be.
water?
No, who cares about the water?
Because you could sell it as environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
But then there's a water
I think
issue.
It's just healthier for your colon. Toilet paper, rubbing it, it's not good. That's
Scratching
Could be a
it, but
healthier
Yeah,
thing.
that's how
Yeah.
you get
We need to
hemorrhoids.
get Brody a mic
I
on
have a
this
mic.
thing.
There
Oh,
we
he
go.
has a mic, yeah.
he just doesn't use it.
He's always got good things to say.
we should just get Brody a headset, so he always has a mic.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I have a USB one at home.
Can't
I
be
do
USB.
too, but it doesn't have.
Can't be
headphones.
USB.
All right. Okay.
Can't be USB.
Okay, it's a shitty one
Oh, no,
anyways.
mine's not.
Okay, hang on. So he says, another huge thank you for your time, dedication, effort, and energy that you put into the show week in and week out. I am truly thankful. I will try to get a Cambodian jungle trip to you shortly,
What?
but for now, just sending you a load of love and appreciation and some money.
No, I can't go to Cambodia.
A friend and a
I don't want
fan.
to go to Cambodia. Isn't there a bunch of fucking landmines still?
What are you talking about, Cambodia?
See,
A trip report.
Oh, okay, good. Not a trip to Cambodia.
No, a
'cause
trip
I'm not
report.
interested.
A friend and fan, Nick, and he says, P.S. Yes, a welly, short for Wellington boots, is a shoe to help with the puddles. That's from previous email. So, but I'll save that rainbow synchro for next episode. I'm gonna.
Boo boo. Can I play my jingle now, motherfucker?
Yep.
Bingo! comment, and you're subscribed to the Grimerica newsletter. Bingo, bango, social media jingle.
So first I'm going to go to the Discord. Does that count as social media? Yeah, I don't know if I want to acquaint it with social media.
I know. Might need its own. I think it should have its own jingle.
But anyway, I got a thing. Anyway, it says from our buddy, I'll just say Mac L.
Okay.
Not the regular Mac.
Okay.
I have done a ton of research into vaccines, and you really led me and the wife into reality, all starting with those documentaries. I'd send them some documentaries. I appreciate the info, and it led us down a rabbit hole we will never forget. Again, I appreciate it. You guys have also inspired me to start making my own podcast. I'm just getting started on it, but I am realizing what it takes to even get started, let alone keeping up with it. Once I have established it a bit, I will let you know, and you can check it out if you have time. Don't be a friend to send any little tips and tricks my way. Just kidding. I know you're busy. I might send you some tips. We'll see.
Right on.
Yeah. Always good to spread some knowledge. Now I'm going to go to the good old YouTubes.
Uh-oh.
What?
Troll Central?
Troll Central.
That was past Twitter. Actually.
Fuck Twitter. Okay, we got... When was the last time I did this?
Quite a while ago. A couple episodes ago, probably.
Okay, we'll go back to here. If Alex really believes in Tom DeLonge from Blink 182, then I suggest he does more research on him.
What? That doesn't make sense. I don't think Alex believed that.
Cheers, guys. Really enjoyed the debate. Does anything less than UFOs landing on your lawn count? I'm wondering, even on them, I think it may actually take stepping out of the vehicle on the front lawn with gifts and pollution solutions that don't include humanity's extinction. And then maybe the MSN might run a couple of stories.
Extinction.
You better watch it over there.
No, that's good. That's pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's going to take something no less than landing and getting out in front of everybody, in front of a bunch of cameras. Otherwise, who knows? It could be hoaxed.
Cameras.
Even then,
I'm
not sure I'd care.
Yeah.
Heard it from Ephraim Palermo. Oh, that's not the one I was looking for. There was one. I had one that was on the other end of that. Now I can't find it, for fuck's sakes. Facebook is just the worst thing in the world.
Okay.
Go ahead, say something.
UFO quote of the week then? How about that?
Sure.
I'm going deep. It's a profound
I think he deleted it.
UFO quote of the week. Words to ponder.
Oh, here we go. I found it. Never mind. You're out. Liked this. This is on number 289 with Alex and Leslie. Liked this show. Didn't love it. Alex has his own show to bitch at Leslie on. I listen to Skeptico too and like it for what he does. I listen to Grimerica for your point of view, not his. If it's a round table, I get it. But Alex is kind of a steamroller sometimes, and I think he likes to fight for the sake of fighting. I know he's trying to bring things out and make points, but the confrontational attitude is off-putting.
Oh.
Yeah. So I thought I should read that one anyway.
Yeah, why not?
I felt that way at first too.
Yeah,
Like it was definitely the most hostile episode I've ever been.
Yeah, but it kind of had. I appreciate that because it had to be. This is an important one to try and push back on. It's different. That's the fucking most important topic.
And Graham's too chicken shit to push back himself, so he had to bring in the big guns.
Push back.
The most important topic, more important than geoengineering.
Yeah, close second to geoengineering. Yeah,
I bet you can push back and power bomb him.
Yeah. Okay, here's the UFO quote. It was a giant plate of light. It lit up the whole horizon with a glare. It was flying low over the landscape and appeared to be spinning. That was from Police Constable Eric Pinnock in Warminster, Wiltshire, in November 1965.
19 what?
65.
Nice.
Yeah. There you go. There's a UFO quote.
Fucking A, buddy. Power bottom Graham. All right, guys. Head over to grimerica.ca/support if you are so inclined, and do help us out with a little support.
Do you even know what a power bottom is?
Yeah.
When did you learn that?
Grim
Just
steak.
recently?
Why are you?
Okay, go back to the support. Sorry, I really
Please support the show because we actually had a couple cancellations last month.
Oh,
I think a few of them went to Patreon.
oh yeah. They're asking to how to get to Patreon.
Yeah, we could always use some more support. Still not at 1%. Probably about 3/4 of 1%.
Trying to get to 1, then 2.
Yeah, let's start with 1. Let's not get carried away. Go for 1%. So if you guys, if you haven't supported the show yet, here I think this is episode 291 or 292 or something like that. So it's probably as good a time ever to go over and maybe do a one-time donation or sign up for a monthly or sign up for a Patreon. And it really is appreciated. Helps us keep going. Helps us replace broken cords and fucking
Boxes and
and every fucking other thing that tends to break along the way. And yeah,
helps us with our gas,
helps with our gas,
gear acquisition syndrome,
coffee, weed, all this shit costs money. And yeah, helps out.
Yeah.
Got thousands of hours into this fucking podcast at this point. So it's always good
Yeah,
to
we
see.
can't do it without you either.
It's always good. Yeah, without the supporters we had right now, we wouldn't have made it this far. But thanks to them, we keep rolling. And if you want to be one of them, check out the support page. Of course, check out the show notes as well, because Graham has a bunch of other stuff in there that helps the show. It's free. There's really no excuse not to at least do that stuff. You can rate the show, review the show, share the show, sign up for the newsletter, sign other people up for the newsletter, all sorts of shit. Just get into there, do it. Just fucking do it. And then enjoy this interview. Who's the interview with again?
Jason Louv.
Right, Jason Louv. Magically forgot.
All right, we've got a special episode tonight with Jason Louv. He's author, futurist, wizard. He's been exploring the outer reaches of human culture and possibility for decades. He's got his blog, Ultra Culture. He teaches at Magick.me, and his new book out, which probably most of you have already heard of, John D. and the Empire of Angels. It's doing really well, and we really appreciate your patience, Jason, on giving this a second time around. We had some technical difficulties a couple weeks ago, so thanks for coming back on the show, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. How's it going, boys?
Yeah, we're doing well.
Other than the gremlins that seem to have moved into the studio since the accident, all is well. But yeah, welcome to the show. I know we've already got a few listeners that have met you and got their book signed, and we have a copy of the book, but it's in the house.
Oh, okay. That's a good place to leave it.
It's a hardcover, though.
That's good.
I've got a copy of the book. It's in the house. Quite a few.
Yeah,
how's everything?
Yeah, we're good. We're good. I mean, you've been on a lot of shows, and we're kind of late to the punch here, but that's okay. We can explore some different perspectives as well, and feel free to go all over the place with us here.
That's good, because we can, I've got all the, I'm so used to it at this point, we can just be super casual with it.
Yeah, for sure. I think I wanted to start off just because, a lot of this is about magic and the occult, and we've wanted to touch on this a little bit more on the podcast. Like, we're getting more and more interested in it. But, it's only been something that we've touched on a little bit because we do, hit a whole wide range of topics. So I was thinking maybe just for people that aren't sure, like, can we define magic and the different types of magic, like Enochian that you talk about in here and chaos magic? Like, do you have sort of a summary of what people, because this isn't this isn't like stage magic, this is like real stuff we're talking about.
Totally. So I use magic as a shorthand word to describe all of the esoteric practices that human beings have been doing since the dawn of history in every single culture around the world. Anything from shamanism to yoga to any practice that people have been undertaking to explore strange realms of consciousness, the unconscious mind, the hidden and occult parts of reality. And that's a pretty broad definition I use. I even include modern things like neurolinguistic programming, and in some senses, even marketing and advertising, I think, are a form of magic because they're very much about changing reality for other people. So I use the phrase magic to cover all of these things because that's a lot to say in one breath, and because magic sounds really cool because it is cool, right?
Yeah.
But in the case of John Dee and Enochian magic, magic is a technical and precise term for the Western esoteric tradition, which is a specific spiritual tradition that has been ongoing in Western culture for a couple thousand years, but particularly since the Renaissance, and was largely kept hidden for the elites, if we can say that, people in the higher echelons of particularly English society, and academics and thinkers and people connected with governments. And it was very much a science, and is very much a science, about contacting, extra human beings, manipulating reality for other people and for individuals, and, to put no two bones about it, controlling the narrative of reality for those who are not so clued in. And one of the things that I've tried to do in my now 20-year career is jailbreak those technologies and get them out to the public.
Ooh, I like that term, jailbreaking. That's a good one.
Yeah,
you should
got a few levels of resonance there. Yeah, totally.
So
what's your favorite? What's your personal favorite?
My personal favorite, iPhone?
Form of magic.
Form of magic. Well, I have to say that, at this point, I've now spent 20 years traveling all over the world, learning every single type that I could get my hands on. So starting with Hermeticism and chaos magic, and Western esoteric tradition, and Sufism, and things like Voodoo and neurolinguistic programming, Freemasonry. I was initiated as a Nepali shaman in the foothills of the Himalaya. I studied esoteric yoga under gurus at the heights at 13,000 feet up in the Himalayas. Buddhism, I've tried to get, do all of it as much as I could, and it's kind of been my full-time life pursuit. That said, I do have to say that one of the reasons I wrote this book, John Dee and the Empire of Angels, is because Enochian magic, which is a very, very technically sophisticated system for contacting angels that was delivered by John Dee, the court astrologer of Queen Elizabeth I, is probably the most almost brutally on-the-nose effective system of magic that I've come across, at least within the Western tradition, possibly not within the Eastern systems. But Enochian is really a system for taking an average human being, breaking them, and then enlightening them very directly.
Wow.
So, I kind of know how that goes. So how does that, can you give us sort of a quick rundown of exactly what that would entail, what that would look like? How long it would take?
It depends on the individual. It would have to be completely self-paced. It depends on the level of spiritual maturity of the individual undertaking the system. And but it's, Enochian involves opening up a sequence of altered states of consciousness through, what we could call ritual magic. And all that ritual magic really is, by the way, is set and setting. If you know the psychedelic experience, Timothy Leary always used to talk about the importance of set and setting for using psychedelics, meaning what was around you, your mindset, all of that, the ritualization of an altered state of consciousness, which doesn't necessarily have to be psychedelic, but can be undertaken through other means, for instance, meditation, yoga, deep breathing, various other techniques. Sex, absolutely. And that's kind of the deal with Enochian, that it's a sequence of about 30 or more. That's only that's only part of it, but the main part, which is calling the Aethers, is opening up a sequence of 30 altered states of consciousness, each of which progressively reveals deeper layers of reality to the magician undertaking it, while fundamentally altering them as they go along. And it's not for the faint of heart, and it's not for dabblers, because the person that comes out on the other end is no longer the person that went into it.
Yeah, I think I heard you mention something like that as a definition of magic, where it strips away what's it, something about it enables you to see reality as opposed to seeing the illusion. Like magic doesn't, it does the opposite of what some people think, where it basically just breaks down the illusion and enables you to see those layers of reality.
That's right. My personal view of magic at this point in my life is that the universe is inherently magical. The universe is a magic trick. Just the fact that we're here at all and conscious of this incredible psychedelic trip called life is, no one knows why. It's unbelievable. And the amount of magic, per se, that's available to us, meaning just the magic of being alive, is infinite and incalculable, but we fuck ourselves up and get in our own way by running with our mental chatter and our story about our life. It's really only our story about our life and who we are and our own thoughts, our own bound thought processes, that prevent us from fully seeing that. And so what I think magic is, people kind of get into magic with this idea of like, oh, I'll learn magic spells and get to have power and, all this nonsense. But it's nonsense, but it's conditioned by Hollywood. And that's not really what magic is really about. Magic, in my opinion, is about overcoming your own story and getting out of your head to the point that you can see the magic that's right in front of your face, which is this utterly beautiful and insane and bewildering and chaotic universe that somehow always seems to kind of work out in a strange and magical way.
Yeah, that's well said. How does the new age sort of stuff like intention and attention and focus and all that fit into this? I mean, that's a form of magic, I would assume, if your intention is pure, or the whole law of attraction thing, how does that fit into it? Is that, and has that been sort of hijacked in a way?
Yeah, well, it's indistinguishable in a sense from the magical tradition. Although the difference between the new thought and new age and magic is much more about using the unconscious mind instead of new thought, which is much more about changing your thoughts. Right, like new thought is basically think positive thoughts, think happy thoughts. Well, magic is don't fucking think. Right,
so that's kind of like meditation, then, in a sense.
Well, meditation's a big part of it, and meditation undertaken in a serious way over many, many years to the point that your brain basically alters. Because at least that's my definition of it. I think that the point is to be present in the world and watch it unfolding as it happens instead of being preoccupied with, by the devil. People ask what the devil is. Or the devil's the voice in your head. It's the thing in your head that you think is you. It's telling you a story about who you are that is just a bullshit made up story.
Yeah, based on trauma and experience.
Yeah, that's interesting. So do you think that aspect of empty your mind and meditation and all kind of looking within yourself, is there an equal, or is there any part of it? Because sometimes I find that a lot of thought articulation almost needs to be done through talking about things.
I'm not sure what your question is.
Kind of like I actually get a lot of it from following Peterson's work, where he's always where he kind of talks about you, in order to really get to know who you are and what your ideas are and what you think. It's not enough to just do that inside your own head, unless he says, there's a very limited amount of people that can actually have that sort of level of conversation with themselves. And it's more like when you get with another person or two, and you could be changing your own mind while you're talking about things, because you haven't really thought about it that way until you're actually trying to formulate it into verbal communication.
Right. Well, this is one of the ways that the Western path differs from the Eastern path, where the Eastern path is very internal. And, the image we always get of people interested in Eastern mysticism is they're kind of sitting in a cave somewhere. The way that Western magic and just meditating, and that's it, with a shaved head, the way that Western magic differs from that is that it's very much about externalization. And hence, when we think about people who are doing magic, even if it's the Hollywood variety, we think of people with tools and things around them and mandalas and images and gods and things like that. And that's because they're externalizing their minds, if that makes sense. Jordan Peterson is an interesting character because he's very much all about the archetypes and Jungian archetypes, which is kind of the first level that people get to when they get into the Western tradition, where they start to ask, well, are gods real in an archetypal way? And they tend to, when people first start to get into this stuff, but they don't really know who they are yet, and they haven't mastered their mind, then they'll be seeing archetypes and seeing patterns and structures in the world, and particularly with psychedelics or things like that, and they'll make the slip that I think Jordan Peterson makes, which is that they think that stuff has some type of eternal or essential quality. Jordan Peterson is very much an essentialist and very much a deist, but what happens as meditation progresses, and it's an important stage, what happens as meditation progresses is you understand that it's just your mind manifesting all of that, and that your mind ultimately is empty of quality. And that's important to point out because, particularly for magical students, if they stay for too long thinking that things are inherently real or real outside their own mind, that is actually the path to religious dogma and religious fundamentalism, because they think that, the gods are real, whereas they don't the Buddhists are very on point about this, where they're almost ferocious in training their students that all that stuff is just their mind manifesting. They're seeing a mirror of their mind. Having known a lot of people on both sides of that fence, I see the results as time goes on. So, but that is the difference between Western magic and the Eastern paths, that Western people do, and I don't want to make generalizations, but I will say that at least the Western path is very much about externalizing the contents of the mind, whereas the Eastern paths, meaning Hindu yoga, Vedanta, Buddhism, and the various turnings of the Dharma, are very much about internalization.
Do you think one is better than the other? Because I know the Western world has done a pretty good job of fucking up a lot of stuff, but that connection almost seems like a bit of, being a master of both would be the ultimate.
But it could be more of like, we've been forced into that in the Western world because of denialism and shame and all this stuff, and this really being a taboo subject. You can even take that back to burning witches. I was talking about that today with someone, how that whole witch burning thing kind of shut down an aspect of society that could have brought some of that in, you know? Yeah.
Right. Well, according to Jordan Peterson, in the New York Times thing that just came out about him, he says that witches are real and they live in swamps. So there's that. But
well, witches are real. I know a couple. I married one.
That's another question. Maybe that's how he meant it. I don't know. But anyways, well, I think you need both. And I think that you are absolutely right that there is, the reason I've spent 20 years on this is because we have a glaring hole and security flaw in our culture, which is the inability to deal with consciousness and the inability to deal with sacred experiences, because we've just shut the door on them because of rational materialism. Yeah. That's an utter fail, right? And I think that a much healthier, well, let me back up. It is absolutely important for our society that we made a clear distinguisher between what is objectively real and what is just subjective fantasy. That's great. And that's probably the reason that our culture has advanced so much technologically. That said, I think it would be a much healthier position for our culture to say, while these things aren't objectively real, they're subjectively very valuable because they allow individuals to mature as individuals. If you undertake meditation or spiritual practice, whatever it is, you will become a more mature individual on the other side of that. You will be more initiated. You will know your place in the flow of life and the flow of nature. And that's what people don't have right now. I think young men in particular crave initiation, and they'll look for it anywhere. They'll look for it in a gang or a negative association or whatever.
How much they can drink.
Sure.
Pro
You know,
sports.
which in itself, yeah. But even look, even drugs and alcohol are very much a quest for God in a way, a quest for altered states of consciousness. It's just done in a way which is unfortunately deleterious to the body. But that's my opinion on it. I think that we need it in this culture, even if we were to say it's subjectively important. It makes happier and more well-rounded human beings. And by the way, I think that's one of the reasons we're seeing the huge popularity of Jordan Peterson, because he does speak to that, and people are voting, you know, in the market. They're saying they want it.
Yeah.
I should actually, before we get too far, I should clarify too that to me, witches aren't a bad thing. So,
And he might have been
out there. So
I think he might have been
think
talking about Hillary specifically, actually.
Jesus Christ, Graham.
You're
this
not
swamp.
doing any.
The
I
swamp.
hear the Twitter mob coming.
Yeah, here we go.
So
Alt-right Graham Dunlop strikes again. And we're talking about Peterson. We might as well be Nazis.
Right?
so
Well, that's my. I mean, I'm not like now. So actually, this is interesting. So last night I listened to the two debates between Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson, and that is a fascinating view on things, because Sam Harris, although being, you know, kind of having this, you know, he's considered a voice for a hard-headed materialist rationality. Sam Harris is also a Dzogchen Buddhist practitioner and spent like 2 years in silent meditation. So he's in terms of the esoteric world, that's pretty freaking advanced.
Yeah.
Like that's really, really advanced. So it was fascinating to hear him talking to Jordan Peterson, because you get a sense of where those two guys are coming from, where Sam Harris understands the emptiness of consciousness and understands the importance of precision of language, where Jordan Peterson is very much a deist and an essentialist, and clearly believes that there is some type of personified and probably patriarchal divine force, right? But his logic didn't hold a candle to Sam Harris's, in my opinion.
wow.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah,
I haven't
for sure.
listened to that one yet.
So kind of building on the popularity thing. I mean, your book has also been really popular, and you're, you know, obviously gaining quite a bit in that. I mean, it's really good timing, obviously, but why is there such an interest? I mean, there's, you know, occult stuff coming out, Magick stuff coming out quite a bit. I mean, the timing's great for your book, but can you speak to like the popularity of that? I mean, because there's a lot of negative press about it as well, especially since in the last couple of years. But there's also obviously a lot of positive stuff, and people are realizing. And I think the science is starting to catch up to the consciousness aspect as well. I mean, we're having these conversations now all over the place. There's guys like Dean Radin and all these other people that are really showing fantastic. You know, I think the science is almost there, and things are opening up. So, but I mean, I guess it's a combination of all that. But can you speak to the increase in popularity?
Well, I think, frankly, it's because people tried everything else and it didn't work. And I think that, well, there's a lot of things. Okay, one, it's the internet, right? It's the fact that you can get all this information. When I was first trying to learn about this stuff, you could not find info. You had to go to university libraries and special collections, and even then it was very hard to find information. Now you can get PDFs or get Amazon Prime books delivered the same or the next day. You can get anything. We can have discussions like this openly without fear of retribution. It was not like that in America in the 80s and in the 90s. We had the Satanic Panic. I mean, you could get killed. You could get killed. No, literally, you could get killed.
What are the
for
fucking
talking
chances
about
I would hear about the Satanic Panic twice in one day?
Well, it's an important part of the history. But I will say that, you know, I feel like basically everything else has fallen apart and Magick has not. It's stood, you know, the tradition has stood steady, and I've tried to revitalize the tradition. So it's really fascinating for me to watch this, because it's kind of like, oh, hey guys, nice of you to show up to the party 20 years later. I've been out here on the wrong side of the tracks, cooking beans on a campfire the whole time. Now everyone wants to show up. Well, okay, well, sit down to the fire. Let me tell you a few things. And it's fascinating to watch what people think magic is actually, and when it's clear that they basically, have no experience in it. On the other hand, you have guys like Gordon White who are experienced. That said, I mean, even to have the conversation that we just had about what is real and what is not, what is mind and what is not. I mean, there is a basic level of competence that you see in the Eastern traditions like Tibetan Buddhism or Theravada Buddhism or Hinduism. They are, on advanced computer programming and AI creation when it comes to spirituality, whereas we're kind of like, oh, well, if I wear a pendant from, if I wear a kind of like pendant with occult symbols on it, will I get power? It's our level of understanding in the West is laughable compared to the rest of the world. And this is going to be interesting going forward, because I think that as Western people get more and more into spirituality, what they're going to find out is they're way behind. Like everyone else has been at this party for thousands of years already. And we were, but yeah. And we're the new kids on the block. And what people think is magical or what is powerful in Western culture is a joke compared to, just travel in Northeast India, travel in Buddhist countries, travel in Thailand. You'll see. But will you get a little power out of a magical pendant? You might get Instagram followers.
What about crystals? Crystals are different, though. That's a different thing.
Yeah, well, that you'll get a lot of Instagram followers for that. And you can sell crystals on Instagram. You can sell affiliate marketing for crystals. Then that's real power.
Can you sell magic on Twitter?
On Instagram.
Oh, Instagram. Can't sell anything on Twitter. Twitter sucks.
Well,
now I lost my train of thought. I had a question lined up. It was a good one too. What do you got?
Well, I mean, it's fascinating. So I wanted to know what's holding back the advancement. Like, obviously, it's speeding up as well. But I don't even know how to ask this question. But with all the tech giants and all the censorship that's going on and all the fake news and basically things always getting put out there, you got to be careful of everything you hear is out of context. I mean, is that holding this back, or how does that play into this Western magic, or is that a form of it itself?
Yeah, I mean, well, from a certain angle, everything's magic, right? Because magic is just about human intention and how humans are trying to change reality around them. So really that is a definition that includes basically everything that human beings do. In terms of tech, we have these systems for the control of consciousness that are more powerful and more advanced than anything that has ever existed in human history, that are controlled by a few individuals. Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, so on and so forth. And that's a shocking power imbalance. I think that in terms of what's holding the development of magical consciousness back, or let's just say people taking this stuff seriously and actually, I'll put it this way, actually taking it seriously as a skill they have to learn, just like you would becoming a doctor instead of just a style affectation. I mean, magic is about the same amount of work as becoming a practicing doctor. It's not you just buy the right clothes off of Etsy and jewelry and now you're a magician. Those are not the same thing. So it would be like, getting sexy doctor costume off of Amazon and wearing that and now you're a doctor. Sorry, kids, it doesn't work like that. No matter how loud you shout about it on social media, that doesn't change anything. But I think that this is what I'll say. Right now is the easiest time ever to get into this stuff, the best time ever to be into this stuff because of information availability and the possibility to openly exchange information. It's also the hardest time in history to be into this stuff because of distraction, because of electronic saturation, and the fact that it's just to be able to develop meditative consciousness is quite hard when you have your phone beeping at you and Amazon Alexa and your computer and the dread that you have to clean your email out and so on and so forth. So
and a job that you have to fucking go to for 10 hours a day or whatever.
That's right. Although that too, if you're that too, all of these things can be turned to your advantage. A job can be an immensely maturing thing. And I think that working a day job can be quite helpful to a lot of people into the occult and magic, because it keeps them grounded and it forces them to learn how to interact with other people and matrices of power.
I think there's a positive aspect to the whole social media part too. I mean, even if people are, buying the gear and pretending in a certain way, I think it's bringing awareness, and maybe, the fake it till you make it thing is somewhat real.
Fake it till you make it seems to work a little
even
bit.
if people go to yoga for the wrong reason, they're going to get something out of it in the end. I think it's planting a seed, or it's just
accidentally.
And anything. I think anything down that path, I think is there's a positive aspect too.
But then at some point it becomes less. At some point as that's happening, they're transitioning into the person that isn't that anymore at the same time. Just the act of, I think anyway, once they make that transition to it being more meaningful, then they would.
Yeah, well, it's that line of logic that you just explained that is why I teach publicly. If I didn't think that, I'm not under the illusion that everyone who hears anything I have to say or sees my stuff online is going to, suddenly take their spiritual development seriously. But I'm also, why would I not use the most powerful tools in human history to reach people when my ancestors never had those? That doesn't make sense either. So, if if it works for some people, and if the people who take it, and just like I started, if they go into it, when I first started with Magick, I went in cynically and even sarcastically, where I wanted to disprove it and show that it wasn't real so I could laugh at it. And that's not what happened. I found out I was dealing with something far different than what I thought. And here I am now. So I don't hold such a low opinion of people that I can't, at the end of the day, trust that things will work out as they're supposed to.
Yeah.
And I feel like it would be a dick move also to be like, oh, well, I know all this stuff about how to spiritually mature and be a happier and healthier human being, but you guys are not cool enough for me to tell you. Like that's fucked up, you know. So that's an ego. That's a dick move.
Judgmental, yeah. So are you surprised at the success of your book, or were you expecting that?
No, I honestly really am, and I'm super, super grateful for it. I don't mean that in like a cheesy, like, oh, I'm so grateful way, but I really am, because I took 3 years to write this book. It's a pretty obscure topic: Elizabethan history, John Dee, the occult roots of empire, the occult side of life. I thought maybe like 20 people would buy it, who are into the subject anyways, and be like, oh, that's an okay book, whatever. But actually, like, it's a lot of people are reading it, and I really am touched by that, and I think it's a great sign that people want to know, and that's one thing that I've learned, by the way, deciding to talk about this stuff in public, is that people want to know. The average person is very sincerely interested in this, and it's people you would never expect. So who am I to say, well, you can't join my secret goth club?
Well, yeah, I think you really struck a chord too, because it mixes the magic part of it and that whole John Dee and the British Empire, and it kind of connects us to the current state of global affairs. It's pretty mind blowing. So I think the timing for that kind of historical knowledge, it was pretty good as well.
Thanks. Well, I mean, it really is it's the occult history of the last 500 years of the Western world, and it is the history that's been kept from people and hasn't been told in the history. You don't learn it in school. You don't learn that the reason that Europe conquered the whole world is because angels told an alchemist that it would be a good idea, right? They don't tell you that in high school. Yet it actually has a lot of explanatory power in terms of looking at the world. I think that when we look at the world through the lens of spirituality, it actually makes quite a lot more sense than if we look at it through like, an economic model or something like that, although we have to look at both.
Yeah.
But it was crazy to me to see that it's like all that information was there. It was sitting in academic papers and things like that, but people weren't connecting the dots and they weren't talking about it. And so for me, it's important that people understand where, what reality is, where they've come from, what their spiritual heritage is, they need to understand why the people who have been in power have constructed the world the way that they've constructed it, and not told them. They need to know that so they can make their own decisions about it. That's how I feel.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I mean, we should probably dig into that a little bit. We can't just leave that as a teaser, because it's pretty mind blowing. And I know you've talked about your book, hundreds of times, but let's try and get into some of that for people and that haven't heard it already. And I appreciate you, sort of talking about everything at a more of a higher level. But I think we should probably hit that a little bit. And I want to also talk about your Magick Me courses and anything else you want to get into before we run out of time as well.
Sure. Yeah. I'm up
so
for
Darren,
anything.
do you have any questions about this? So we can start with, John Dee was in the Elizabethan court. I don't know if court is the right word, but he came up with the term British Empire, and he was like, this was the start of like he said, Europe taking over the world. And it's like, it's hard to, I almost, when I hear you talk about it, I almost have the sense of like, well, was it a good thing? Like, was it, because it's hard for me to believe that angels would come down and tell somebody to do something purely evil. But the takeover of like what they did wasn't very good. But like, so was it,
well, maybe
it's hard to judge, right?
Well, yeah. How do you judge, all of the effects of hundreds of years of history? It's impossible, right?
Yeah.
Particularly since we're living in history. We don't know the final outcome of these things. We're not that far away from these events in history. We're living in the ricochet or the echo from them.
Yeah.
We're living in the blast radius of the birth of the British Empire, particularly Canada, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
We just got our independence.
Nice.
But I think we still do something.
Yeah, hate speech is still disallowed here, so we're still in the
And
shadow.
there's still like the judges, like when you go to court, it's still the Queen's Bench and still called fucking Crown Land.
So do you guys realize that if history had gone slightly different, then Canada would have been owned by John Dee?
Oh, I don't know. That would have been probably.
What was you going to do with the Indians?
I don't know. But, well, he wanted to convert everyone to Christianity. That was kind of the idea. So I don't know if it would have been that much different. Right. Not much different.
Sounds like more residential schools.
Right. Oh, hey. Well, maybe I should just tell the story.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that does sound like a good one.
So, okay, so John, who was John Dee? So Dr. Dee was a mathematician, scientist, and occultist who lived in the 16th century, and he was the court astrologer and scientific advisor to Elizabeth I, and he spent his entire life trying to discover all the secrets that were available in the world, which for him meant mathematics, optics, physics, and the occult. And for him, they were all the same thing. He wanted to discover a super science. He wanted to know everything. He wanted to know the mind of God. And he claimed that, as time went on, he got more and more into practical magic. And he did say that an angel, the Archangel Michael, allegedly gave him the phrase British Empire and the idea that there should be a British Empire. And he then propagandized for this greatly, and it convinced the Queen that this should be the case, and then laid out all the technical schematics of how to do this. And the thing about Canada was that he was the mastermind behind Sir Francis Drake's circumnavigation of South America to get to the West Coast, which had never been done before. Drake landed in San Francisco and then returned to England. He landed at Drake's Bay in slightly north of San Francisco, but Dee had a contract with him that if he went further north, that everything, I believe, north of the 51st parallel or 52nd parallel would have belonged to Dee, meaning he would have had Canada, but wow. Drake just didn't go that far. But Dee believed that the and this is where it becomes apocalyptic, but he then spent 10 years fully engaged in occult rituals to speak to angels because he thought that he'd learned everything he could from the world, from worldly authorities and books, and the only way to get more knowledge would be to talk to the angels. And what the angels told him, among many other things, is that there should be a world Christian empire underneath Elizabeth instead of the Pope, and that the angels themselves would use this world empire to create a new super religion for all of humanity, uniting all religions on the planet underneath their domination, and that this would then be used to save the souls of everyone on Earth in preparation for the second coming. So, you know, when you mention things like the presidential schools and stuff like that, I mean, this was the result of this empire and things like the treatment of the Aborigines and Aboriginals in Australia and the Bengali famine in India. I mean, the British Empire, the death count on the British Empire was far greater than anything in World War, anything in Nazi Germany even. So there's quite a tragic shadow that follows this, and we're still living in the shadow of it, because even though the British Empire has basically fallen apart and just become the Commonwealth, the American Empire is the spiritual successor of it, and inherits all of the military and spiritual story, the military power, and perhaps the spiritual story of the British Empire. And so we can see things happening now, like the bombing of Syria, and particularly the move of the Israeli embassy to Jerusalem as further chess moves in this multi-century plan to cause the apocalypse and thereby the second coming at gunpoint, even though the rest of the world, the non-monotheistic cultures, never had a say in it. And that, for me, is the true explanatory myth of this is what we're all living in. Like when you get into magic, you can ask, well, what kind of magic do goths at the mall do? Well, that's interesting, but I want to know, what type of magic do the people in power do?
Exactly.
And I think that's kind of the deal.
So what I meant before, I want to clarify that. I wasn't saying that it's hard to judge whether that was good or not. I guess what I was trying to express was his mission correct, or like, did he misinterpret the intention, or did he get it wrong? Did he get this message and then fuck it all up and try and take over the world? Like, I mean, you could say the message of a super religion could be a
Science.
positive thing if everybody was not forced to believe in the same thing, but at least brought together. I mean, it's you know what I mean? Or was it like, take over the world like they did? I mean, that's pretty crazy.
Well, I have to say that I can't say that I'm a historian. I mean, I've written a history book, but I wouldn't necessarily call myself a historian. But in writing history, I think that it's probably part of my job to not make
speculation,
to say one way or the other, because even if I did, it would only, I can, but it would still only be my opinion, right?
Exactly,
it's only one person's opinion.
Yeah.
But I should point out that it's not like Dee directly accomplished any of this stuff. In fact, when he was kind of going around England and then Europe on the continent, doing everything that he could, along with Edward Kelly, his scryer, to interest all the monarchs in this plan. They tried to get Elizabeth into it. They tried to get the Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian into it, and everyone kind of dismissed him. He was kind of like this ranting, kooky Terence McKenna guy, like, oh yeah, like angels are going to come down, and it's going to be great, and they just laughed at him. But they did take his ideas and then executed on them, but that was mostly after he was dead. And it's so the power is in the ideas, not the man.
Right.
So I think that Dee himself thought that all of this, I mean, he was a hardcore Christian in the 16th century. That was reality for him. He didn't really have any vantage point on that outside of that reality tunnel. He didn't have the luxury that we have today. So I think that Dee was completely sincere and fully believed that all of this was necessary and a good thing. But really it wasn't really, but that's the thing. I mean, it's not really about Dee. It's more about the messages that he was getting and then how those impacted history after his death. Dee is really just kind of a conduit for that information.
I don't know if I might have my timing right, but was that the genesis to the separation of the church and state a little later on?
Well, yes, because one of Dee's other plans was that America should be a spiritual utopia, that the Protestant dissenters should be able to go to America, and which also had his horrific colonial shadow. But he thought that it should become a place of free thought away from the Catholic Church. And then, of course, what happened was genocide when Europeans came to America. But his thought, and then it was later picked up by Francis Bacon, was that church and state should be separated. That free thinkers would have to leave Europe and go to the New World to do that, and that it was imperative for the Protestant powers, meaning England and the Netherlands, to do that before the Catholic bloc did, right? Before Spain did. And that was, as I call it in the book, the Cold War for the New World.
Wow. So can we get into his process a little bit with Edward Kelly?
Sure.
And let Darren, unless you have any questions about it. Yeah.
I think that, so the process was, so D was, he was a hardhead, is the phrase we use in occult circles, which a hardhead is somebody who's so compulsively rational and wants everything explained to them that they can't get out of their own way long enough to actually just have an experience and let something happen. So D was a hardhead. He was kind of like, he was a mathematician and all this. He was hyper compulsively rational, which meant that even though he'd had this long-standing interest in the occult, he couldn't do it, right? He could do the ritual part of it, but he couldn't experience visions or anything like that. It just wasn't going to happen for him. So what he had to do is employ kind of psychics who were of a different class than him, and, it was a big cultural divide between him and the average scryer. D is somebody who's an apparatchik of the Elizabethan court. Scryers tended to be, I would say, of the same social position as kind of people like street corner psychics now, psychics who have just psychic shops around neighborhoods, and you see them, but you don't really even notice they're there because psychics are so low on the social hierarchy in our culture. That was kind of the deal with scryers. So he had to work. So he had to work with scryers, and it wasn't until he met Edward Kelly, who was a scryer who'd been accused of necromancy and summoning demons and all this crazy stuff, but had this tremendous psychic gift and ability to see visions, that you really started making progress. And so the working method was basically praying at length for the angels to give them knowledge, and talking about, and then as time went on, doing more precise ritual procedures, and then Kelly going into an altered state of consciousness by staring into a crystal ball and then saying what he was seeing. But these sessions went on, again, almost a decade. And the first 2 or 3 years of the sessions are the angels just telling them how to make better contact by building ritual equipment, which was to facilitate that contact, and then giving them the Enochian language, which was supposed to be the language spoken by angels before the fall from the Garden of Eden.
Wow. So what were some of the things that convinced him at that time that Edward was the guy?
So this is contentious. I think that he was pretty quickly convinced, because Kelly was telling him and delivering him messages that answered a lot of the questions that he had and lined up with books that he had read, prior grimoires he had read. Now, this is kind of a sticky one, because this also suggests that Kelly could have just been reading books in Dee's library and parroting back information.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of parts of these sessions where it's really hard to say what the deal is. There's parts where it seems like Kelly could be making it up. Historians have said that these were cryptography sessions, that they were engaged in intelligence work and were masking it in cryptographic form as occult information. Wow. It's possible that Kelly was mentally ill, or there were substances involved, although I didn't see any evidence of that in the diaries. Maybe a little bit, but it's a mystery. But it's also not clean cut. There's a lot of ways you can look at that stuff and say, okay, there's what's going on here. Particularly by the end, when Kelly decides to tell Dee that the angels have told him that they should swap wives and that this would be a really great idea. That's the point where it's like, okay, what's going on here?
That's hilarious. So what about building the ritual equipment? Like, is there examples of exactly what that was? Is that like scrying equipment and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's basically like the world's most complicated Ouija board. It's this immensely elaborate altar on which a crystal ball is meant to sit, which involves a lot of writing from the Enochian language. And it took them probably 3 years to get the instructions on how to do it and then how to build it. At which point they then left England and went to Europe to go into the next phase of the work, which was trying to, the angels, after they delivered all this, told them that they needed to go to the Holy Roman Emperor, tell him he was possessed by demons, and that his only hope for salvation would be immediately repenting and doing everything that the angels said, at which point he would be made emperor of the world.
Oh my God.
So they actually went and actually told him this, at which point his response was, well, okay, that's nice. Do you know alchemy? Can you make gold out of lead? Can you make can you make me rich? They said, no, but we can make you, we can make you enlightened, emperor of the world. And he was just like, all right, I heard it all before.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll talk to you later.
Yeah,
but then he did later capture and employ Edward Kelly to make gold for him.
Oh, that's interesting.
After they refused, yeah.
Stole his scryer for gold. So
yeah, and Kelly willingly went for it and threw D under the bus to do it.
Oh, wow. So did, you mentioned that people stole their ideas or at least took that on. Is there any examples of, that communication and that type of equipment and that being used in other power structures back then? Like, was that sort of catching on, and did people start doing that themselves? I mean, it must have caused a bit of a stir. Even him just traveling around Europe, people must have been like, what the, maybe this guy's onto something, even though they don't want to act like he's being truthful, there could be.
Right. Well, it's very likely that D. and Kelly's travels in Europe inspired the creation of the Rosicrucian movement, which was responsible in its own right for the creation of more modern Freemasonry, esoteric Freemasonry, as well as perhaps the scientific revolution, because the Rosicrucian movement laid the groundwork for science to happen. And of course, people involved in these things were also directly experimenting with D. and Kelly's methods. The most famous one is Elias Ashmole, who was probably the first recorded speculative Freemason, meaning a Freemason that's interested in philosophy instead of just bricklaying. And there's an occult writer named Stephen Skinner, and along with another one named David Rankine, who made a case that this was passed along in the higher echelons of British society, including admirals and lords and things like that, and that this was being done behind closed doors by people who passed it on by hand and by oral instruction for the next couple hundred years. But it's not until the birth of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and through them, of course, Aleister Crowley, that it really reemerges into the public consciousness.
Huh. So that's what I was going to ask you next, is that sort of more of that connection to our contemporary understanding of this stuff. So that's kind of where it ended up going to him, and then who knows where it went after that, right? I mean, did it jump over back to the Nazis and all that in Germany, and did it come over to, like, how did that get into our power structure then?
I've never seen any evidence of that, or even a hint of that. But where it did go was the U.S. space program. Fascinatingly enough, in that Crowley's, most brilliant student, as many know, was named Jack Parsons. He was the guy that created solid-state rocket fuel. He is, one of the people that started, or the initiatory force behind what is now known as NASA's Jet Propulsion Labs. He was involved in science fiction and rocketry and all of this, and there's a crater named after him on the dark side of the moon. He's the guy that's basically responsible for creating the modern space program, or is there at the very beginning at least.
Yeah.
And he was full on engaged in this stuff and doing it pretty balls to the wall. Yeah. Which is another bizarre angle on how this stuff intersects history.
Yeah. And when was that? What was that timeline like then?
1940s.
1940s. So
yeah.
During and after the war, but I mean, then see, that's what's weird about it, is then you had Nazis come over and go into NASA too. So there's probably crossover afterwards with Jack Parsons and all that.
And they were working with Werner von Braun at JPL and things like that. That's a whole other side of history that I'm really fascinated with now after finishing this book.
Oh man, Nazis are a rabbit hole. Holy fuck.
Yeah, that's another rabbit hole. Maybe you guys can decide if we want to go there or not. But
we want to go there. Yep. We don't need to go there right now, but we can go there right now. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, Nazis
Can I just say like a few things about this?
Yeah, oh, for
fuck
sure,
yeah, man.
100%. Yeah, we want to get into that a little bit more
man.
as well. So yeah, for sure.
I
I found this book on Amazon. Oh my God, that's a whole other. So this is not so I should just preface by saying this is absolutely not related, really whatsoever, unless some smoking document shows up to anything I've just been talking about. Enochian is very much, and Magick in general, by the way, is very much about the English. It's about the Anglo-American Empire. So I found this book on Amazon called the Nazi Hydra in America, which is this huge history of the links between the U.S. and Nazi governments, and there is some shocking shit in that book.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, man! I'm in the.
My God.
I've read a couple of Fourth Reich ones, and I bet you there's a ton of crossover.
There is, well, maybe you can fill in what I don't know, but like, so for instance, things I've read in there. One is the extent to which American industrialists financed and supported the Nazis.
Oh yeah.
And even to the point where, so the one that a lot of people know is that the eugenics policies of Nazi Germany were developed in California, actually, and a lot of them by Margaret Sanger, who founded Planned Parenthood, which people don't like to talk about. But there were plans for, sterilizations of people. And the shocking thing, by the way, I can say this as a journalist because I actually reported on this about 3 or 4 years ago. There were eugenics policies in California to sterilize minority women starting in the 20s and 30s, but they didn't stop. 2 or 3 years ago, there were a story was broken by it was either ProPublica it was the Center for Investigative Journalism or Center for Investigative Reporting, where they were still doing this in prisons in California, where anytime any African-American women went in for surgery or any type of medical procedure, including teeth cleaning, they would wake up with their tubes tied. Whoa. So they're still doing this and may still be doing it now that the spotlight's off them. That tends to be how it works. But those policies were all developed in California, and the Nazis directly patterned a lot of the concentration camp stuff off of things that had been developed in California. But even more shockingly, and I can validate this based on articles that were in The Guardian, by the way, so this is not like conspiracy theory stuff. Prescott Bush was directly funding Hitler, of course, being George Bush's father, the first Bush, and George W. Bush's grandfather. And he was also profiting off of concentration camp labor.
Yeah, same with, wasn't it? I think Ford was tied in there too, right?
Oh, right. Yeah. With all he was a lot of Hitler's anti-Semitic stuff came from Henry Ford, and where he wrote that book and all of that.
And then it's like, so you look at like the way a lot of the Fourth Reich stuff and that goes is that basically that's where, the Nazis already knew they were losing the war. So they switched everything and took all their stolen loot and used that to they realized that the world was going to be won economically and not by the point of a gun. And then you take a look at if you look at the first European fucking council or whatever the fuck they call it, the first European Union that came, whatever, is it 53 or something like that? Take a look at that and take a look at what the fucking Nazis wanted to do with Europe when they were done with it. And it's the exact same thing. And take a look at who was in charge of the fucking thing. I can't remember his name right now, but he was the fucking Nazi that was planning it fucking 15 or 10 years prior.
Oh, that's crazy. But also,
and take a look at who runs the EU now.
Right.
There's
Hitler's daughter?
I'm not going that far. Germany's in charge of the European Union. That's exactly what the Nazis wanted to do with Europe, is have Germany be the economic powerhouse of Europe.
You know what else they laid in? Speaking of Europe, Swedish pop music. The Nazis are all over that. So I found this out recently. So as long as we're talking about European stuff, ABBA, right? One of the main singers from ABBA was part of the Übermenschen program, where they were trying to make superhumans between SS officers and I guess like superfine German women.
Wow.
She was one of the people that came out of that, and the ones that survived the war basically went underground, but continued to have meetings where they were plotting, the Übermensch overthrow of the rest of the world. But also Ace of Base, I just found out recently, used to be a neo-Nazi band. or the guy the guy who started it, the guy who masterminded Ace of Base used to be a neo-Nazi, and then got insanely rich from Ace of Base, and then used all that money to get into this position where he's like the head of communications for like all these big marketing firms, and like directly involved in policy in the developing world and all of this stuff. Vice did an article about it. It's shocking, but it's the same in the U.S. where like Operation Paperclip, they brought in all these Nazis into the government after the war, and then of course we know now post Ferguson much more about how much neo-Nazis and skinheads will join the police to directly get into positions where they can do Nazi stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah, if you go down that rabbit hole far enough, you can get into the thing where I mean, America was basically, infiltrated by the Reich, and that it even got so far to the point that those original group that separated taught themselves. I mean, it's a deep hole. I read a novel, and that sent me off, because I've always been a huge World War II buff, a huge Nazi buff. I've watched some pretty controversial documentaries on the other side that you have to kind of fact check a lot, and you might get 10 minutes of truth out of an hour and a half of crazy shit. But then I read a novel, and that got me going down, because I hadn't really looked at that aspect of it so much. But wow, there's a bunch of great books out there. Jim Marrs has a good one.
I'm kind of scared to go too far down the rabbit hole, because then I'll know too much. But did you actually, you know what though? I'll say this. Did you see Captain America, the Winter Soldier?
No, I did. Fucking play that shit no more.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just rewatched this recently.
Yeah.
I remember watching it when it came out, but I rewatched this. It was after reading this book, and they get that whole history in there. I mean, that whole movie is about like after the war ended, Hydra agents infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. and now they run the U.S. government. Yeah. And I'm like, holy shit, how did they get away with getting this movie
now
out?
I gotta watch this.
What?
Yeah,
I gotta watch this.
Somebody in there know. Yeah. I mean, somebody's got to know all that. Yeah. And
it's crazy.
And then I think we were talking. Was it when we were talking with Walter Bosley or John or Farrell? I'm not sure which one, but they're talking about the Argentina connection, and then how those scientists came back, or the politicians came back into the U.S. government. Now I don't remember names either, but it went deeper than the NASA connections as well.
What's a NASA?
And NASA?
Yeah,
is it NASA?
What about the Clintons? Are the Clintons connected? Come on, Jason, let's wheel them.
I don't know. I got to finish the book.
Okay.
Who knows? Well, here's my question, right? Like, like Robert Anton Wilson, right, always used to say, after researching conspiracy theories for decades, people would always ask him, well, who's really in charge? And he would say, conspiracies are real, but there's always like 64 of them operating at any given time. And they're all competing with each other. And I think that's probably true. He would basically say, like, well, let's talk about how power operates, right? You analyze your local PTA meeting, right? I don't know if you guys call them PTA meetings in Canada, Parent Teachers Association. Yeah, okay. So, like, you think about all the politics there and the backbiting and the little, like, schemes that go on and the conspiracies, and then you just blow that up to the geopolitics level. I mean, that's what I want to know. Like, what are the real sides? What are they actually fighting for? And do they even actually know what they're fighting for? Like, I can imagine that people may be taking actions and just have no idea.
Everybody just has their own little agenda. Fucking just a mess. I mean, I go back and forth from that too, because sometimes I'll get fed up with the whole thing, and I'm just like, it's just a bunch of dummies thinking they, there's no grand scheme. I really don't think these people are capable of it. But when you got all the money and all the power, then I think, I've never had that. So that probably changes things.
Well, and then when you make all those connections that we were just talking about with the end of the war and the infiltration of the U.S. really at a high level, and now what's happening in Europe, like, it does make you wonder. I mean, it does make it seem like everything's all connected.
Go to fucking Portland for a weekend.
I mean, you could you could approach that in your next book with from the Magick side, with the Nazis and their occult practices. I mean, there is there's a lot to that
as
well.
Such a touchy subject.
Topical again. Yeah, touchy. Well, there's a new book coming out called, I think it's called Dark. It's called Dark Star Rising or Dark Magic Rising by Gary Lockman. I'm going to have him on my podcast, but it's all about like the modern neo-Nazi occult stuff. So that's probably a good one. But I'll say this, right, in terms of like occult conspiracies and the people in power and where their heads are at. So when I was 19, my first summer back from college, I got a summer job at a beach club. I was making $8 an hour and working as a cabana boy with like little David Hasselhoff short shorts and a red polo. Right? Yeah, it was.
I got it.
When was this? Was it in the 90s or 80s?
This would have. Let me think about this. This would have been. It was before. It was the summer before 9/11.
Okay.
Right. So it was. I guess it would have been the summer of 2001.
80s, 80s.
No, I didn't say 80s. I said 90s.
Oh, I'm pretty sure you said 80s.
No, I said 90s.
You're the only one in the room that was wearing short shorts in the 80s, bro.
It was a more innocent time, but and so it was. This beach club was for the richest people in the southwest of the U.S. So there were all these people who were like Vanderbilts and Rockefellers and stuff like that. And I'll say a couple things about this. One, not one of those motherfuckers tipped me all summer.
Wow.
All summer. These are people who inherited millions.
Those are the kind of people that never have cash on them.
Well, see, it's all tied up in retirement accounts.
I could pull out some money. Yeah. Come on, can you just grab lunch?
Right, exactly. So my job was to bring them towels and food. And, when they got out of the ocean, I would bring them towels. It was kind of a humiliating job, but it was fascinating because I got to observe them. And this is what I saw. Those fucks have nothing in their heads. They would get up every morning. I would set up along with the rest of the crew, we would set up their like pool chairs in front of the ocean. They would go sit and stare at the ocean all day long doing crosswords while we brought them martini after martini, and then they would go to bed, and then they would wake up and do it the next day. And they all like had long teeth. They all looked like kind of inbred Kennedy family type, old money, and they did nothing. So if those people were not capable of, buying a car on their own.
You don't think they went to their hotel room afterwards and planned the demise of the world after dinner?
Maybe their grandparents. Here's the thing. Maybe their grandparents did. Maybe they really did. But I think, once you get down to the third generation of old money, it's got to be like, you got to be a lazy motherfucker, man.
A lot of diminishing.
Pampered, it's just, I don't know. And plus, like he said, I mean, I'm not going to say it, but, you're trying to keep that money tight. You don't want that money getting too far. So it's like, hey, she's only your third cousin.
No, that's true. So that's a great jumping off point, because I talked to a friend of mine had ended up who's like involved in blockchain stuff, had ended up talking to a lot of like super old money, like noble families in England. And he said, I was asking him like, what's their opinion on money, right? And the example that he gave was, they would bring out toast for the guests, and then they would get jam, but they would just perfectly spread jam in like quadrants over the toast, so they wouldn't use any more than utterly necessary. The reason being that people at that level, if it's inherited money, then they're living off of dividends of investments. Right. So the longer, and they're not working for more money. So the longer they spread what they have out, the longer they get to stay in their position of privilege. But it's at the point where like they wouldn't fix their clothes. There would be cobwebs on the chairs. It's like this kind of like Dark Shadows type setup where they do everything they can not to spend money, because that's how they got rich, I guess. Wow. And they don't want to lose the money. So that's a crazy mindset to be in.
I could use a little of that mindset. I'll be honest.
There you go. Yeah, so we should have such problems, right?
Yeah, exactly. So do you want to get into a little bit about your Magick.me or stuff like that you're working with?
Hey, before we jump into that, let's actually build on that a little bit. Have you come across any magic towards money and stuff like that? I mean, is there any tricks with that you've come across?
Yeah, sure, of course. It's just like everything. I think that, well, let's see, what's my answer to this? Self-knowledge is a big one, because especially in our modern world, getting clear, especially with, well, as you guys know, right, because you have this podcast and all of this stuff, it's like the internet provides us tools to turn our passions into our work. Right, in a way that hasn't, it's like, so I think that if you're able to some extent, right, where it's like, but if you're willing to go out on a limb.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, so we have, like Amazon Cloud Services, that was not available to people. You can create and scale a business off of cloud services now, where it used to cost millions and millions of dollars. Even Google Analytics. Google Analytics is a tool that companies paid $2 or $3 million just to get access to, not specifically that, but things like that, prior to all these free tools coming out, and they wouldn't even use it correctly. So the amount of power that's out there to create something and turn it into your work is tremendous, assuming you have access to that level of information technology, which not everyone does, right? Sorry. So I think that it's kind of, man, well, it's just like anything, like Crowley said, what's the magical way to open a door? It's to go over and turn the handle, right? And so I look at, business and all of that. I used to work on Madison Avenue, all this stuff. Like, I take everything seriously as a magical system. And I think that the tools are out there to basically do whatever you want, assuming you can convince people to pay for it. But, I know people who live off their podcasts where they have subscriber areas and things like that. Of course, it takes, I'm nowhere near that with my podcast, but it takes a lot of work to get there. But the tools are there. But it's about mindset, and it's about more than mindset. I think it's about finding what you truly have that people really want. It's kind of like finding your true core passion.
What about in a practical business sense? Like, let's say you're running a business and it's not doing very well, but it has the potential, but it's maybe slipping through your fingers or slipping out of control. Like, how would you change your mindset to manifesting just better business?
Well, first I would look at the analytics,
There's
look
no
at the analytics.
Yeah.
No analytics.
That's the problem.
Okay. There's your first problem. You got to measure everything, and then plug the holes. And for me, it's basically like figure out what's working, figure out what's not working, cut what's not working, and then double down on what is working.
Right.
That's business optimization, I think, in my opinion. And that's a hard, especially if what you're doing as what I am is, and what you guys are doing is like an extension of your personality and as a labor of love. It's really hard to say, well, I'm just going to cut that part of my personality off because it's not working financially, but that's how I approach it,
Yeah.
It's a numbers game.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't referring to our creative endeavors here, but just business in general, because it's interesting how business, like if you're in business and it's not your passion, it's a different thing than if you're trying to create something out of your passion. It's
totally. Well, then it just becomes a job, right? And then your passion's not in it; it shows.
Yeah.
Does it show?
But
I don't know. No comments.
Hope not.
But I do think that it's more, I also have a course on blockchain technology, which is at bitcoininsider.io, which is about leveraging cryptocurrency and blockchain technologies. I think that on one hand, we have access to so many technologies for wealth generation now, and yet things are moving so fast that so many people are going to be left behind.
Yeah.
And the curve of acceleration is going forward so fast that we're going to be in a pretty crazy situation pretty soon. And I worry, just having spent so much time around tech people and seeing how they think, I worry that the powers that be, as it were, and that doesn't mean conspiratorial, but I mean like corporations like Amazon, places
Central
like
banks.
Well, I would say more the tech world. Because I don't know anything about central banks enough to talk about it intelligently. But I worry that the tech world has essentially figured out how to make people obsolete.
Yeah.
And that we're just going to end up in a situation. This is why they're talking about universal basic income. We're going to end up in a situation within 10, 15, 20 years at the most, where there aren't any jobs. And there's talking about with artificial intelligence, even white collar jobs. I mean, lawyer, journalist, my job, like anything could potentially be handled by an AI.
Not podcasting. Probably
who
could.
knows? Well, you heard about this Google Voice thing where there's this new tool that Google has where it can make phone calls to people for you, and it sounds like a human being.
I heard about that. It could fool like 8 out of 10 people or something like that.
So
I wonder if they'd fool me. It does. If it's the one I'm thinking of, it doesn't fool me because it calls me about 3-4 times a month and offers me a $250,000 small business loan.
Is that's actually what it does?
Yeah, and then there's another one that offers to put me on the front page of Google for a fee. This is your local Google representative.
Wow.
I wonder if that's AI.
Oh, maybe it is. It must be, right?
But it just sounds like a recording to me.
Okay.
I must be woke.
Yeah, it's all that.
It's all that.
PC bud.
It's all that green.
Yeah.
I'll try cussing at it next time. See what it does.
Ask it complicated questions about your life. Ask it.
You just end up on the phone for like 3 hours with the Google AI.
Right.
You go out on the back porch and blow your head off.
Oh man, that's you say that, but you just wait. Wait. I mean, I talk to my Alexa like it's a person, you know.
We try here.
We have a guy in the chats that just said he lost his job to a machine. That's a shame.
It is a tough one. I mean, how is it gonna?
I mean, losing your job ain't so bad if the problem is because I can see this whole wave of creative. You know, I can see a future where most people are doing something for themselves, but that's not going to catch up in time.
It's not really
and
sustainable either, because there's going to be a point when you reach a tipping point where, you know, you need to produce something, right, to consume in a way.
But you're producing. Everyone's going to be producing their own thing.
Yeah.
Like I think, you know, like Jason was talking about with podcasts and books and everything else. It's going to be like more of that and more like, I don't know. It's going to be weird. Like, I think that's the future. And if you've got, I mean, you could almost look at that as a positive if everyone has a universal basic income somehow, and then they've got the freedom to go after it, or not even go after it. They're just doing it. That's what you do. I mean, some people are going to do better than others, but nobody's starving. I mean,
right. Well, that could be a good future, but yeah, I mean,
if the machine tells me to shoot myself, that's a bad future.
That's a bad future. But yeah, in terms of my money magic advice, I mean, it's basically that. Figure out how to use technology to do what you want to do and have it work for you instead of against you, because people are just going to get crushed under the wheels of progress. I wish I could sugarcoat that, but I think that's what's going to happen, you know, and then they're going to be dependent on universal basic income. If that happens, and I'm not convinced they're actually going to do that. You know, I think they're saying that so people don't riot. So, you know, once they figure out what's happening.
Well, they're saying that until they get your guns.
Yeah. Well,
and then once they get their guns, they're like, "No universal income, motherfuckers. You guys can eat each other."
So
here's some OxyContin.
Yeah, exactly. What's the future of blockchain outside of currency?
Well, that's hard to say. Okay, here's my thoughts on it. That's hard to say because there's so much bullshit and hype about it right now. My take on it is that blockchain right now is like the web was in like 1996, where everyone was like, "Whoa, there's this worldwide internet coming," and everyone is like, "Oh, everyone's got to have a website," and so people are throwing millions of dollars around, if you remember at this time, to people just to make websites for them that didn't even work. But people hadn't really figured out what the web was, and they didn't figure it out until around the early 2000s after the .com crash. So I think we're in a big hype cycle that there will be a bubble burst in the next year or so, or 2 years, but that after that, whoever is the big player in the space, whoever the Google and Amazon of blockchain is going to dominate the world probably. And there's a lot of the uses of blockchain, by the way, are not money. It's not creating more, it's not cryptocurrency. It's doing things like recording supply chain transactions, and even doing things like law, doing things like real estate escrow, because you can use the blockchain to transfer property between people without having a third party. The real promise of blockchain is trusted transactions without a third party.
Voting?
Yeah, voting. They're doing it in places like Estonia already, I think.
Really? Eh? Wow, that's crazy. Some countries
will
be ahead of others. Some countries will be ahead of others, and you'll vote on a whole bunch of different issues, and you'll just, you know, everybody will plug right in and see how that works.
Is it unhackable then?
In theory, it is, yeah. Because the thing about blockchain is that a blockchain is being run by hundreds of thousands or perhaps millions of computers all over the world, and they're all coming to consensus that all their data is the same every 10 minutes or so, depending on the actual blockchain product. So in theory, in order to hack the blockchain, you would have to hack every single computer running the blockchain and alter the information identically within a 10-minute window. So for instance, to hack Bitcoin, you would have to hack tens of millions of computers within a 10 to 30-minute period. all simultaneously and change every single one of them. And to do that, you would have to have an well, okay. Well, then when that happens, so I was going to say that currently you would need at least an equal amount of computing power. So you would need to be running at least 10 million computers to hack 10 million computers. But when we get into something like a rogue AI, well, we're not there yet technologically, not by a long shot, but it's a potential future.
It's exciting.
So, say a guy broke his phone and he got a new phone. And he had all his crypto wallets on there. And now he was logged out. And he couldn't log back in. And he didn't remember his passwords.
And he's fucked. That's happened to people. People have lost millions that way. Someone just threw away their hard drive.
Did you just lose our little
Probably
bit of
a good idea to
Grimerica?
stop donating cryptocurrency for a few weeks
no.
at least.
That's the second time it's gone sideways.
Yeah. I'm not good at cryptocurrency. We should even stop.
You can just write your password into your somewhere on paper somewhere.
I think I had it in the notes and I think I deleted it. But I suppose we should wrap it up.
Yeah, we should let you go, Jason. So what about anything else you want to talk about your work, Magic Me or anything like that, or your crypto? So I could learn I could learn crypto stuff from you then, or?
That's right. So BitcoinInsider.io, which I'm probably going to change the name of shortly because Facebook banned any ads related to Bitcoin. But BitcoinInsider.io is the place to go. I've got a full, HD training. I've got interviews with some of the biggest experts in the field. I will walk you through knowing nothing to being able to absolutely master Bitcoin, blockchain, and cryptocurrency. Within the space of that course. And that's not only, for financial reason, that's for instance, if you want to figure out how to integrate blockchain into your business, if you're a small business person or a big business person, or if you just are working at a job where you want to look like the hot shit, like the master of this stuff, and people are going to be super impressed, then you can learn that stuff because any business that doesn't at least incorporate blockchain into what they're doing a little bit within the next 5 years is going to be left behind in the same way that any business that didn't get on the web was. And people made fun of the web when it was first coming out. Blockchain's the same. So that's BitcoinInsider.io. The book is John Dee and the Empire of Angels, and it's out now. It's actually on discount on Amazon right now, so definitely take advantage of that while it lasts. They usually take those things away pretty quickly. And that is the complete history of the occult nature of reality and why we're here and where we're going. And then magic.me, that's magic with a K, magick.me, is my online academy for magic. So you can learn chaos magic, ceremonial magic, astral projection, meditation, Enochian magic. I just uploaded a class on everything we were talking about. It's all there because I want that Promethean information out to the public. And you can actually get a free course to sign up for that. All you have to do is text the word shaman, SHAMAN, to the phone number 44222. They'll send you back a text asking for your email address. You put in your email address, it will send you a free 1-week course. It'll give you all the basic information you need to start doing magic right now.
Nice. That's awesome.
There you go.
Right on.
Right on. Thanks, Jason. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you putting up with all our bullshit last time. And,
it was great. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, I think it was worth the wait.
Yeah, right on.
And
yeah.
next time we'll go deep down that Nazi rabbit hole.
All right. I'll do some reading in advance. I'm looking
That'd
forward
be a
to
good
that.
black budget show. We'll go Nazi crazy.
Yeah, you got to hit on the magic part of that too, like the whole.
Well, that I know about, like with Himmler and all.
Yeah.
That's a whole other.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
Oh, man, yeah.
All right.
Okay, Jay. Well, thanks
Next
again
time.
for coming.
Till next time.
Yeah. Have a good night.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Bye.
And that was a chat with Jason Louv, who, of course, for those of you who didn't catch the chats about the missing show, we tried to do this like 2 weeks ago, and we fucked around for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And he waited and waited and waited.
Very,
and then we had to cancel it.
We had to cancel it.
And then we found out it was this fucking audio hub.
Shake it for the mic. Yep. Yeah.
That's a rattle.
Broken piece. So I think it took us about 15, 20 minutes after we let him go to figure out what was wrong.
Yeah.
We thought it was the mixer. We thought it was.
We thought
it was everything.
We're still having some cord fucking gremlins.
And then tonight we tried to get going, and we just got our shit together in the nick of time. Like,
yeah, I gotta do a full teardown. I don't know when I'm gonna do it because I'm fucking.
Yeah, don't worry.
but-
Well, it's working now. Let's just let it ride for as long as we can.
Well, that's
Like,
what we did
don't-
last time, and then we came back in and it wasn't fucking working again. So there's that.
And we don't even know what you did. You unplugged stuff, plugged it back in, and it started working.
There you have it.
So, anyways, that was a great chat. I was really appreciative that he let us sort of, talk about some overarching or high-arching things and
overarching, hierarchy.
and the whole Nazi thing and getting into that he's, willing to discuss a lot. I did want to ask
I know he's
him-
been on a lot of shows, so hopefully we change it up a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that is a pretty fascinating story in his book there about John Dee and all that.
And rich people are fucks.
Channeling angels or communicating with angels. And I wanted to ask him about the Nazi thing, about how all the accusations are they the actual Nazis accusing people of being Nazis?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe could well be.
Is that this is really leftover from Project Paperclip in the war, and now they're turning it
Or are
around?
you talking so quiet? You're feeling guilty about talking about that stuff? Maybe. I think it is.
Maybe.
And then they're telling their little subordinates to call everyone Nazis too. And then all of a sudden Indians are getting called Nazis. That's the world we live in, folks. Big thanks to Jason for coming on the show. Do check out his stuff, buy the book. And when you're done doing that, check over to grimerica.ca/support. Sign up for a monthly via PayPal, Patreon, or there's monthly, weeklies, and yearlies now. Actually, that yearly's become pretty popular. So if you don't mind doing that, that really does help out, guys.
Yeah, we can't do it without it.
We can't do it. I mean, look at shit is breaking all the time up in this motherfucker. It sucks. But we fight through because of supporters. So support the show if you can. Do everything in Graham's Honey DoBeDoBeDo list.
Yeah, there's a chat. There's a chat, the link to the chats as well, which is a fantastic place. A Discord chat. There's a bunch of channels in there.
Right,
people hanging out.
Grimerica.ca/chats.
Yeah, and then there's a bunch of other things. I'm on Instagram and Darren's on Twitter.
For now.
What else is there? I was thinking there's
we're
on the YouTube
newsletter.
videos.
Grimerica.ca/news.
Newsletter. We're going to be putting the newsletter out sort of ahead.
Did you talk to Justin about that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, because I didn't.
I mean, we didn't come to any real solid conclusions, but we're going to focus the newsletter more on being a notification of this coming out live on YouTube. So Brody's here to help us for a while. He's been helping us do these live YouTube things, and then we're putting that audio out in podcast format after. So we're going to set up the newsletter. I think it might still come out Monday or Tuesday before our Wednesdays is our usual night for recording. That's when sort of most of the live stuff will be.
Yep.
But sometimes we have to do weekends for people overseas or early mornings or late nights. But for the most part, it'll be Wednesday night. So that newsletter will come out probably just highlighting who's going to be on that Wednesday night.
There you have it. So there I lost. I totally just, that fell flat. So support the show, buy the book, check out the show notes.
Or even more, just sign up for the free course and learn some magic, man.
There you go. And send out some good vibes, motherfuckers. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.
And thanks for
Can I
joining us in the
stop
chat.
the fucking podcast before you thank the live show next time?
Oh, is that what you're doing?
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Somehow I built a rocket ship out of the stuff dreams are made and popsicle sticks. Please look at my rocket ship schematics. Tell me it can fly to the moon. Tell me I'm not a lunatic. I bet you think I'm a space cadet. I bet you think I'm a space cadet. No regret, I do not fret, 'cause I am a space cadet. In my hands I have a gas can and matchsticks. wild sadness, the chaos and dramatics. I'll let you do the countdown, 3, 2, 1, no hesitation.